Help! I have kidney stones. Now what do? Please help me. If this sounds like you, make sure to join my free webinar and masterclass coming up on October 2nd, 2024 at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. I'm going to be talking about everything that I wish every single person knew as soon as they find out that they have kidney stones. This is going to be a great class if you just found out you have stones or you've dealt with hundreds of stones. I'm sure there is something that you would learn. Just head to www.kidneystoneclass.com and I cannot wait to see you on October 2nd. Again, that's www.kidneystoneclass.com to register for this free webinar. Welcome to the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie Betts. After learning a ton about kidney stones and helping people prevent stones at the University of Chicago, I was fed up with all the terrible advice people were finding online. So I decided to do something about it. The Kidney Dietitian was born. This podcast is for people who want to learn what actually works to prevent kidney stones and still enjoy life, eating, and their favorite foods. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the 61st episode of the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast. I'm your host, registered dietitian and kidney stone expert, Melanie Betts. And today I'm going to be talking about a topic that might be surprising to some people, but I think is super, super relevant, especially for people who maybe just found out that they have their first stone or are just sort of getting started on quote, eating right, air quotes here, whatever that means, for kidney stones, and find that they are just losing weight in a drastic, dangerous way. Weight loss is not always a good thing. In fact, there's many times that it is not a good thing, which is one of the many reasons that I never praise weight loss without really knowing what's going on in that person's life. And even then, honestly, it's, maybe not the best idea to be like, oh, you lost weight, you look so good. But that's kind of a whole nother discussion about your relationship with your food and your body. Today, I really want to talk about weight loss when people are simply not eating enough. And in the case of kidney stones, it is often because they are afraid to eat or they are over restricting. I get a lot of people who send me messages on Instagram or get emails or whatever, who say that they have lost, I'm just going to make up numbers here, but, they've lost, 20 pounds in a month, and we're at a weight that they felt comfortable before, and this weight is just coming off and they don't know what to do. And this is a huge problem. I think first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that just losing weight like that when you aren't necessarily trying to, and especially if you don't want to lose weight, that is a huge problem. That means that you are likely malnourished or on a fast track to becoming malnourished, which comes with a whole host of issues. Of course, we want to be a well-nourished human. So I really think that 9 times out of 10, when this happens, when people are losing weight drastically when they first start out on a quote, and big air quotes here again, kidney stone diet, because as you know, there's no single kidney stone diet. Nutrition for kidney stone prevention has to be individualized to your 24-hour urine test. So, what works for one person might have literally no effect for another, might even be harmful for another. So it's really, really important to make sure that you are getting your diet sort of personalized and you really know what's going on in your urine test before you even embark on this kidney stone prevention journey. But I think what happens for so many people is that they, of course, do not get that 24-hour urine test. And their doctor, well-meaning doctor, will say, hey, just go follow a low oxalate diet. And then they go online and they start reading tons of things about all of these foods that they can't eat anymore. You might read, I can't eat any salt. I can't eat any oxalate. I can't eat any protein. I can't eat any sugar, right? And you're just like terrified to put anything in your mouth out of fear of forming another stone. And what ends up happening is that people don't eat anything or people eat not enough, right? And they end up losing a lot of weight. And this is heartbreaking, honestly, because it's really, truly doing harm to people. All of this terrible information that's out there that's saying you cannot eat these things. Because as you know, that is simply not true. There's literally nothing in that list of nutrients that I just mentioned that our goal is zero of. Our goal is never zero added sugar or zero oxalate or zero sodium, right? It's all about just making sure you're not eating too much of these things. But what people read when their doctor says don't eat oxalate or follow a low oxalate diet or stop eating salt, right? They hear I can't have any of that. And when you then put all of these things together, of course there's nothing left to eat, right? Like all that's left is like Rice Krispies. That's simply not enough. That is not a diet that is going to help your body function the way that it should be. And it's not surprising that people end up losing weight. So again, this is a problem that comes up quite a bit in I think the kidney stone world, again, especially when people are just starting out, because you're so afraid to eat. You want to do everything that you can to prevent stones, which is admirable, right? Like that is wonderful that you are so invested in kidney stone nutrition. But I think unfortunately the messages that we get from our doctors and from our typical healthcare prevention team and from the internet is that it's a bit too extreme and it ends up doing a lot of harm in many ways. But one of these ways is that people end up losing weight because it is way too they end up being way too strict, essentially, with their quote diet or with the changes that they're trying to make. So if you fall into this bucket and you find that you are losing weight in a scary way, I would say my number one piece of advice is to stop restricting so much. If you are not getting enough calories, which means you're right, if you're losing weight, that means you're likely not getting enough calories. There is a very high chance that you aren't eating too much salt, sugar, protein, et cetera, anyway, right? And again, our goal is never 0 salt, 0 sugar. That is obnoxious. That's bananas. If anyone says that, run far away from them because that is simply not true for basically any nutrition advice, right? Unless we're talking about like a gluten-free diet for celiac disease or something, or allergies, right? Then of course we need to aim for 0. But when we're talking about these types of things, our goal is never 0. So if you're losing weight, there's a very high chance that you're not eating more than the 2,300 milligrams of sodium anyway, right? For example. So I would say give yourself a little bit of leeway to eat more food, because if that's ultimately what we need to do is we need to get more food into you. We need to get more calories into you so your body has enough fuel to run on. So I would say my number one advice is to stop restricting. You're going overboard, and we need to find a better balance and a happier medium for you. Because always maintaining your nutrition status is number one. When I used to work in my, 7 lifetimes ago, when I worked on a hospital floor at Rush University Medical Center here in Chicago, a lot of what hospital dietitians do is to prevent or treat malnutrition, right? Because when people get sick, they don't eat, they get malnourished, and bad things happen generally, or the increased chances of bad things happening. And so a lot of what I would do is to help people eat more, and no matter what that person was in the hospital for, maintaining that nutrition status or trying to get nutrition status or their, well-nourished state back is always number one. Any restrictions around fat or sodium or salt or sugar or carbs or whatever we're talking about, those go out the window. If someone is malnourished, if they are not getting in enough energy for their bodies to function properly, that is our number one goal, because we do not want people to become malnourished, because that, again, results in a whole host of other issues that we certainly want to avoid. So just wanted to kind of share that kind of perspective. I don't know if that's helpful, but just to kind of help you understand how important it is that we are making sure that your body is getting enough energy to fuel itself and for you to feel good. And if you are losing weight in this way, your body's not getting enough energy. So forget everything and just eat in order to make sure that you are getting in enough calories. Of course, I know that this could be terrifying advice because I just told you to eat food that you're afraid is going to give you a stone. And if that's the case, and if you find that you're not able to eat food, I would highly encourage you to reach out, work with us in Kidney Stone Nutrition School or one of our Kidney Stone dietitians in our one-to-one patient packages to help you feel more comfortable eating. I think that sometimes is a really big role of a dietitian, is to just help people feel safe and comfortable eating, especially when they've suffered from kidney stones just once or perhaps for decades, right? Like you're just so afraid to eat, and just helping working with a dietitian can really help you feel safe and confident that you know that you're eating the right things and it's gonna be okay, right? So anyway, I digress. My number one advice, again, for you if you are losing weight is to stop restricting too much. I think especially make sure that you're not restricting too much on the protein piece. I think in Kidney Stone Nutrition, we talk a lot about protein, and I have other episodes where I get into the nitty gritty of plant-based and dairy protein and, animal protein and all that stuff. But I think sometimes people hear, oh, I can't eat protein. And when you don't know how to put together a healthy, well-balanced diet that includes some protein, of course, again, our goal is definitely not no protein. Our goal is usually, for most people, depending on your urine test, just avoiding too much protein, especially coming from those non-dairy animal sources. But people hear that and they get afraid and they think, okay, I can't eat protein. And of course, when we restrict protein specifically, that can end up with us losing weight and losing muscle, and not great things. So stop restricting in general, but especially just take that protein restriction out of your brain in order for you to make sure that you're getting enough nutrition. So if this isn't enough, if you're like, all right, Melanie, I feel like I'm eating salt and sugar and I'm still losing weight. I think the next step would be to just make sure that you are adding extra calories to the food that you are eating. So if you're struggling to maintain your weight, we can add calories with fat. Fat is certainly the macronutrient that has the most calories. So we can add things like extra oil to our vegetables, or even butter in our, say, mashed potatoes or on our toast, or sour cream into things, right? Adding extra dressing. All of those things are going to be extra fat and calories, which are good things for someone who is struggling to maintain their weight. I think another really good hopefully relatively easy swap for someone who is struggling to maintain their weight while following kidney stone restrictions is to just focus on full fat dairy. We talk a lot about getting in enough calcium in kidney stone nutrition to help reduce that gut absorption of oxalate and ultimately reduce the risk of stones. And full-fat dairy has essentially the same amount of calcium as a low-fat or fat-free / skim version of dairy, but it's going to have more calories and more fat. And so if that is something that you need, then I think full-fat dairy can be a really great option. So looking for a full-fat yogurt or looking for whole milk. These are full-fat cheeses, right? Most cheeses that we eat tend to be full-fat. You have to really search for a low-fat cheese, and it's honestly not very good. But looking for these calcium sources and these dairy choices that are full fat is really going to help get in some extra calories. And of course, we know for most people getting in that calcium is so critical for oxalate stone prevention, and also super important for bone protection and bone health for people with stones. So that can be a really great thing. And especially if that one's not going to add a ton of calories, but if you're sort of losing weight or feeling like you need a little extra energy, and this it's not going to stop weight loss, because it's only going to add probably a couple extra 100 calories throughout the day, but it can be a good way to help make sure everything is in line if you are sort of leaning towards this dangerous weight loss side of things with following whatever kidney stone recommendations your dietitian had. I think another thing that is really important to think about is to make sure that you are eating enough throughout the day, or eating enough times throughout the day, if that makes sense. Of course, eating enough, but also eating enough times throughout the day. Most of us feel best when we're eating 3 meals a day and a couple snacks. And if you are not getting in enough nutrition, I would say do not go more than 2 or 3 hours without eating something, right? In a perfect world, we want you to be eating 3 meals and probably 2 to 3 snacks if you are struggling to maintain your weight. But please, at least have a snack, right? If you can't get a whole meal down, at least get in that snack to get some nutrition in you, and make sure that snack is more than an apple, right? An apple is great, but make sure you add some peanut butter to it, or add some full fat yogurt to it. Have some crackers, but make sure you have some cheese with them, right? You want to make sure that snack is hefty, because that is an opportunity for us to get some more calories in you to help you maintain your weight. So I find that sometimes comes into play when people are losing weight unintentionally. They're just not eating enough times throughout the day, right? And sometimes that could be related to fear of eating. Sometimes it could be related to just schedules, right? Some people just don't think about eating until the nighttime. I am definitely not one of those people. I love to eat. I don't love breakfast. I kind of have to force myself to eat breakfast. But by lunch, I am very hungry and love to eat. But some people are different, right? And if you are used to that sort of one meal a day schedule, and then all of a sudden you change all of these things about the types of foods that you're eating, that could end up being in a calorie deficit, right? Like you could end up not getting enough nutrition because you made such drastic changes, which again, may be wonderful changes, but we have to make sure that we're fueling your bodies and you're getting enough nutrition and vitamins and minerals and all the good things that food gives us. So make sure that you are eating enough throughout the day if you aren't able to maintain your weight. That could be just simply that could be the missing part of the puzzle. And my last piece of advice for you, if you're losing weight while trying to make diet changes for kidney stones, is to maybe think about separating the water and the fluid that you're drinking from meal times. So we all know that basically the only thing that spreads, that holds true for every single person with kidney stones is that we need to get in enough fluid. All the other things could be different, but getting in that fluid is the most important thing and holds true for every single person. Unless, of course, there's always even a caveat for that. Unless, of course, you're someone who has, very advanced kidney disease or liver disease or heart disease and you're put on a fluid restriction for some reason. But that is sort of a very specific situation, right? For most of us with kidney stones, we want to be drinking a lot of fluid. And sometimes if we are having a lot of fluid with meals, that could be taking up space in our bellies and sort of taking the place where food should be and ends up limiting how many calories we take in. And so I would maybe, if you do think this could be you, right, this is kind of very specific, and it's always hard to give these types of nutrition recommendations on a podcast in a, general setting where, there's a gazillion reasons why people could be losing weight. But these are kind of the things that I hear most often. And if you feel like, you're like, I'm just chugging water during lunch and during dinner or during breakfast, right? Maybe just stop doing that. Like, obviously, I still want you to get in that water, but just have that water 30 minutes before or after your meal, so you're hungry and you have space in your belly to fill up with all of that nutritious food at whatever meal you're eating. So think about that you might fall into that category. And ultimately, I want to end this pretty short episode with just an impression of how big a deal unintentional weight loss is. I think we live in a world where weight loss is always a good thing, right? Everyone's always trying to shrink their bodies, for better, for worse. And it's really not a great thing all the time. Weight loss means that your body is getting in a lot less nutrition. Sometimes that can be an okay thing, but a lot of times it's not. And especially when this weight is coming off and you're not meaning to, and you're feeling like, oh gosh, like I feel really weak, or all of a sudden my clothes are like hanging off of me, or, lots of these signs that your body really might not be getting the energy it needs. That's a really big deal, and we need to do something about it. So in this podcast, of course, I gave you some hopefully really helpful tips to help you get started. And like I said, I really think that 8 or 9 times out of 10, just simply not being so strict with your diet is people are fine and they move on with their life and they find a healthier balance with all this stuff. But if you find that you are continuing to lose weight, that could be a sign that something is not right? And we really need to go to a doctor to make sure that everything is okay. There's not some other, underlying cause of why you're losing that weight. And also, I cannot stress how important it is to go work with a dietitian. Once you have that doctor workup and there's not, again, some other thing going on that's causing that weight loss, you really, really, really need to work with a dietitian to really help you find a healthy balance, because we do not want you to be losing weight. That means that you are losing muscle mass. That means that your body doesn't have the protein that it needs to make the enzymes that it needs to function. That means that your organs don't have the energy and things that they need to function, right? Like your body is not going to be in its best shape when you aren't getting enough fuel for it. So it's a big deal. Please do not take it seriously. Definitely consider consider working with a dietitian, and if you are especially concerned about preventing kidney stones, which I imagine many of you are if you're listening to this podcast, I have a team of dietitians now that can work with you one-to-one to really help you dig into what the best diet is for you based on your 24-hour urine test, and also help you manage other nutrition concerns like weight loss. And also perhaps, this whole picture gets even more confounded or more messy, I guess, when people also are, trying to follow a quote diet for maybe high cholesterol or for diabetes, right? Like you have all of these lists of foods from your doctor and maybe from other dietitians that you saw in the hospital of foods that are quote good and bad. And you're trying to just come up with a list of like 5 foods that are okay for you to eat. And just know that that is not how it should be. And that is definitely setting you up for failure, right? Because that's simply not healthy and also not sustainable, right? No one can eat just 5 foods for the rest of their life. Like that's ridiculous. Truly, it is all foods fit. Nutrition for whether we're talking about high cholesterol or diabetes or heart health in general or high blood pressure or kidney stone prevention. It's all about learning how to put together healthy meal patterns specific to you, right? Specific to your medical history, specific to your cultural preferences, your life, right? Like all of us are so different as people, and we have such different food likes and dislikes and things that are important to us. It really, all of these things have to be taken into consideration. So if this is you, definitely consider working with one of our kidney stone dietitians to help you put this all together. Of course, you can also always work with me in Kidney Stone Nutrition School as well. I definitely in the course talk about more in depth some of my tips and tricks for making sure that you are getting enough calories on a quote kidney stone diet or while you're trying to make changes for kidney stone prevention. So hopefully that is helpful if you fall into this bucket. Like I said, this might be a surprising topic for some people, but it really is a big concern, I think, again, especially when people are just starting out on their kidney stone prevention journey. So with that, I will end this episode of the Eat Away Kidney Stones podcast, and I hope to see you next Wednesday. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For more help with kidney stones, check out my website, www.thekidneydietitian.org. For more personalized help from me, check out my online course, Kidney Stone Nutrition School. VIP enrollment includes help directly from me. I can't wait to see you there and help you prevent kidney stones. Have a great day.